Hi there, and welcome to the coronavirus update for the 30th of March 2020, where there are about 750,000 cases in the world. There have been about 35,000 deaths, and we're going to go back to the numbers to see if we can get sensible estimates for what the best case scenarios are for places like Italy, UK, and the United States. Now, the United Kingdom has come out with a best case scenario of they think they'll be doing very well if they can get away with 20,000 deaths in the United Kingdom. And I think that's probably about right. That is the best case scenario. Realistically, you're probably looking at twice that. So you're probably looking at about 40. And America has, their chief medical guy has come out and said for America, they're looking at 1 to 200,000 is kind of where they're looking at. And those numbers are also probably fairly optimistic. Now, what we've got here is all of this here is the Johns Hopkins spread data, which you can get here. And I've got the spread data for various countries. This is the population of the country, just in case you're wondering. And I've started all of the data on day 0 when there are 500 cases recorded in the country. So what you've got here is the spread of the virus in Italy. Italy is great, by the way, because we've got lots of data on Italy. Italy is maybe 2 weeks ahead of everyone else. Sort of first world country, maybe a decent thing that we can look to as to what we might expect. And the UK at the moment is following beat for beat where Italy was. America, just so you know, is not doing so well when it comes to cases. They're going up very, very steeply at the moment. Anyway, so my reckoning is, well, where do I get my estimate or guesstimate that the UK is going to be about 40,000? Well, you do a simple extrapolation from Italy. It turns out Italy is actually mostly under control here. You've got to look at it in more detail, which I'll do shortly, but Italy is probably only 2 weeks from having this thing shut down. It all comes down to what do you think the mortality is. Now, at the moment, Italy's got about 100,000 cases, and they've had about 10,000 deaths, which means 10% mortality. That seems pretty high. I mean, a lot of people have been bouncing around a number of 1% for the mortality of this thing. So, let's do another one. The whole world had, what was it, 750,000 cases, and there were 35 million dead. So the mortality rate from there is 5%. And this is, these are much larger numbers than the 1% that I've seen bandied around. And it comes, the difficulty of this number comes down to two conflicting, two parameters that drag this number here in different directions. The first one is you don't know. These are just confirmed cases. The actual cases may well be 10 times higher. So the actual number of cases in the world is far more likely to be up in around the 7 million region. And the other factor that works against you is these 35,000 deaths. If you take a look at the daily deaths, those are the people who were infected about 2 weeks ago. So, at the moment in Italy, today, there was about 1,000 people who died. Yeah? Those 1,000 people were actually infected about 2 weeks ago. Yeah? They were infected all the way back here. So we actually get an estimate of of the people infected on the same day. What was their survival rate like? So this is the actual Italy data here, and this is actually the numbers that we need. And so this is about 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks ago, there were 3,500 people infected on this day 2 weeks ago, if that makes sense. Of those, 1,000 died. That means that you're looking at a mortality rate there of about 30%. Now, this is helped, of course, by the fact that the number that you actually have infected here is maybe 10 times lower. So the number of infected is actually 10 times higher than you think it is, because you've not been very successful in your testing and all that sort of thing. And if you've watched these reviews on previous days, you'll know that if you take the number of people who die and you know that they were infected 2 weeks ago, and you make an estimate of the mortality and the number of people who have spread the virus since, this number here is probably lowballed between 10 and 50 times, something like that. So let's take a look at this. If we wanted to get to our optimistic numbers for, well, let's go for America. America's got a population of 300 million. So if only 1% of the population, let's just say everyone is infected, worst case scenario, but only 1% mortality. That means you're going to look at about 3 million people dying. And, okay, let's make it a sensible pandemic. It's only going to be 70% of the population is infected. Worst case scenario, everyone in the country gets it, and there's only 1% mortality. You're looking at 2 million, right? So to get it down to 200,000, you have to limit the fraction of your country that gets infected to 10%. Okay? That's 10% where you only have a 1% mortality rate. Okay, is that possible? Well, we're going to do what we have done previously, and now I'm going to maybe, to show you the method I'm going to be using here, I'm going to use the Italian data. Remember I told you that Italy probably has this mostly under control. And the reason I say that is if you look on the day-on-day growth here, how much does the growth go up every day? And we can do that for all the sets of data that we've got. And what we find is that, initially you start off with a spread rate of about 1.3. Then with Italy, they start to get it under control. And now their spread rate has almost halved over the period of about 2 weeks. So, if that continues, they're going to have this thing completely under control in another 2 weeks. Once the spread rate gets down to 1, you've got no new cases of the virus in the country. So let's see what that's going to look like. So this is Italy here. And we're just going to reduce the number of cases per day by some constant. And we have to go down until, actually that's almost exactly right. There we go. So now I can control where I think my reduction for Italy is going to be. I can make it less or more or lots more. Okay? But let's just take our best guess, which is something along those lines. Okay? It's a sort of fairly linear reduction. We can hope. What does that do to our spread data here? So we have the number of people who are currently infected, and we know the people, this here is the spread rate. So we can actually model how many people have it on the next day. Oops. How many people have it on the next day, and so forth, all the way down till there's no more points. Good. And by the looks of things, this takes us up to day 44 from day 30. So it's almost exactly 2 weeks. Just going to have to go up to about 50. And there you go. Perfect. So that's what Italy is sort of expecting to look like. And Yeah, they're about here somewhere. They're actually pretty close to getting this under control. Um, yeah, there's quite a lot of flexibility on this, but this is probably a better case scenario. Is Italy has 100,000 cases at the moment. It's going to go up to 150,000. Okay, so we can do a similar thing for America. So what does America look like at the moment? Well, America looks like that at the moment. So we're going to need to do the reduction of the spread rate in America. And with this is America. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. And okay, that's much steeper than, yeah, so this would be if you did a much better job than Italy. And there's no real signs of the spread rate going down in America at the moment. Yeah, if we gave you Italy's spread rate or reduction in the spread rate, it's going to take a long time. So let's give you a bit more. Okay, let's take this as a sort of realistic scenario. I don't know how many more days we're going to need for this. Boom. Okay. So we run out of points about there. So by this reckoning, you would be all done by day 50, which is almost exactly a month on from now. And currently you've got 104,000. Prediction for today would be 120. I think we're actually at 140, but whatever. That's going to be our prediction for America. Boom. So you max out at about 4 million. Now, at that, 4 million. Remember that we said we have to limit to get this optimistic number of 200,000. You've got to limit it to 1/10 of the population actually getting the virus. So you've got to limit it to about 30 million. You need 30 million cases to only have that, assuming you've just got the 1% mortality. Now, this looks like it achieves it easily, and that you're only going to get 5 million cases. But you then add in the fact that this number is probably lowballed by an order of magnitude, and all of a sudden this number of containing it to merely 30 million cases in America becomes very difficult. And for those who doubt the need for the quarantine and the such like, the wild spread of the virus doubles every 3 days, let's say. So that means that to go from 30 million to infect the rest of the country. So in 3 days' time, you're going to be at this. Sorry, 3 days' time it doubles, right? Every 3 days. And so you only need 3 days, 6 days, 9 days without quarantine. 9 days without quarantine, and you go from just having the 30 million infected to having the whole country infected. So that's why the quarantine is really important at the moment. Because 10 days makes a huge difference. So, is 200 million realistic? Well, is 200,000 a realistic number for the death toll? Can you limit the number infected to 30 million? Is your mortality really only 1%? These are the key numbers. This is definitely, I think, a lower expected number. And I think the number of Americans who died in World War II was about 250,000. So you're getting up to the entire death toll of World War II with this. Anyway, so I'm going to call it quits at that. And yeah, maybe tomorrow I'll do this similar sort of calculation for the rest of the world. I think, yeah, you're going to end up with in the millions. But okay, so I'll wish you good luck and see you next time.